A woman couldn't lead the country, and a woman of mixed race.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, you lying sack of It was mixed drinks, not mixed races. True, though, Joe may be demented, but I guess being a conniving, race-baiting loon is the last thing to go. Biden also trashed Trump, asking why he's going after people's health care.
Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly roast The View after Biden's disastrous interview, a media showdown. You won't believe what went down when Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly saw President Joe Biden's latest interview. It was such a disaster that it felt like watching a train slowly go off the rails, one awkward sentence at a time. And The View? Well, let's just say they tried their best to act like nothing happened. But Gutfeld and Kelly weren't having it. They called out the nonsense, and what followed was pure media fireworks. Imagine watching a circus, not because you bought tickets, but because it showed up in your living room. That's what this interview felt like. Joe Biden sat there, doing his best to answer simple questions. But it was like watching someone try to read instructions in a foreign language, confused, hesitant, and totally lost. Instead of a clear message, Biden's words stumbled out of his mouth like they were in a race to get away from him. He looked unsure, distracted like someone who just remembered they left the stove on mid-conversation.
We have to start with what just happened over the past 62 minutes on The View. And it's not even one of my wacky View clips for you where we just make fun of Sunny or Joy. I mean, we love those. But this is like legit Joe Biden, who's on, well, you guys will tell me what he's doing here. And I'll tell you what Mark Halperin says. He's on some sort of a rehabilitation tour. Well, okay. Anyway, he goes on to The View, and it wasn't rehabilitative at all.
It was uncomfortable, but it was also the kind of thing that people like Gutfeld and Kelly live for. Greg Gutfeld, the comedy sharpshooter. Let's talk about Greg Gutfeld first. He's not your average news commentator. He's more like the guy who shows up to a serious event wearing clown shoes just to make a point. He mixes humor with political commentary so well, it's hard to tell if you're watching the news or a stand-up show. So when Biden's interview went south, Gutfeld didn't just comment on it, he turned it into a roast. It wasn't just jokes. It was sharp, brutal, and hilarious. Watching Gutfeld react was like seeing someone light a match and toss it onto a dry field. You could practically feel the flames.
You know who just stunk up The View. The Bidens joined The View this morning for the entire hour. The audience was caught off guard, but knew something was up when they saw a dozen Secret Service agents and 2 embalmers. There were a few awkward moments, though, when a confused Joe asked if he could bid on the showcase. But was he surprised Kamala lost?
He didn't just mock Biden's gaffes. He aimed right at The View, the daytime talk show known for defending liberal politics at all costs. Gutfeld made it clear in his eyes, The View wasn't just defending Biden, they were covering for him like a PR team on damage control. They're pretending everything's fine, Gutfeld said in so many words. But we all saw it. The guy couldn't get through a sentence. And he wasn't wrong. While the hosts of The View tried to act like Biden's word salad was just a small bump in the road, Gutfeld made it look like they were the ones steering the car straight into a ditch. His takedown wasn't mean-spirited. It was funny because it was true. Biden clearly had a rough time during the interview, and pretending otherwise made The View look ridiculous. Megyn Kelly, calm, cold, and cutting. Now, if Gutfeld brought the fire, Megyn Kelly brought the ice. Her tone...
Here's a little bit more. Speaking of those around him who covered up his infirmity, or at least that's where my mind went. Dr. Jill was there too, and as usual, came to the rescue. Watch SOT 38.
A lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in the interest of time.
The people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president.
She says none of these people writing the books worked for us. Well, one of the first to have his book hit interviewed Ron Klain, who was Joe Biden's chief of staff for almost all of his presidency. And he went on the record saying that Biden thought he was president of NATO. Where was that follow-up, ladies of The View? I must have missed it.
It wasn't loud or full of jokes, but it cut just as deep, maybe even deeper. She wasn't out to entertain. She was out to expose what was really happening. Kelly has spent decades in the media world. She knows how interviews work. She knows what a strong performance looks like and what a train wreck sounds like. So when Biden gave that interview, Kelly didn't laugh. She dissected it like a surgeon with a scalpel. Her words weren't wild or exaggerated. They were quiet, sharp, and deadly. She calmly pointed out how disastrous the whole thing was, and how The View's response was even worse. "You're seriously still defending this?" she seemed to ask with her tone. While Gutfeld cracked jokes, Kelly made you think. She wasn't just calling out Biden, she was calling out the
It's about The View. It's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy.
Entire media culture that refuses to admit when things go wrong. And she didn't let The View slide either. She called out their tired excuses. He's just tired, or he had a long day. Kelly wasn't buying it, and she didn't think the public should either. Her biggest critique? The View wasn't doing real journalism. They weren't asking hard questions. They were sitting there, smiling and nodding like cheerleaders at a pep rally, hoping no one would notice the quarterback had fumbled every single play. The View? Cheerleaders for chaos? Now, let's take a moment to look at The View. It's a daytime talk show with a big platform and a loyal audience. The hosts often act like they're delivering pearls of wisdom. But after Biden's interview, they looked more like people trying to sweep a mess under.
You know, how can you now speak the truth and when for years you've been telling lies after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest. And they could be honest. All they would have to say is, look, we hate Trump so much. We were willing to lie about Joe Biden because we felt he was preferable. We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're honest scum.
Under the rug while the whole country was watching. Instead of addressing how awkward and concerning the interview was, they tried to downplay it. They pretended it was just a rough patch. But come on, anyone with eyes and ears could see that Biden was clearly struggling. Watching them was like watching a group of people trying to convince you that a tornado was actually a gentle breeze. And people noticed. That's when Gutfeld and Kelly swooped in with their commentary. Gutfeld was loud, sarcastic, and brutally honest. Kelly was calm, thoughtful, and just as relentless. Together, they created a storm that The View couldn't ignore. Gutfeld's biggest question: why are we pretending this is normal?
Joe's obviously confused, but it was worse during the break, you know, when he kept calling Whoopi Regis.
A full day, and then at night I'd be in bed, you know, reading my book, and he was still on the phone reading his briefings, just working with staff. I mean, it was nonstop.
Right, Jill. And you're an actual doctor. You know, not one who got her degree off a box of Frosted Flakes.
And really, that was the point. It wasn't just about one bad interview. It was about the growing trend of ignoring what's right in front of us. Biden's struggles are becoming more frequent, and instead of talking about them, certain media outlets act like it's no big deal. But Gutfeld and Kelly weren't playing that game. The internet reacts, is this the best we can do? As soon as the clips of the interview hit social media, it was over. The jokes, the memes, the commentary, they spread like wildfire. And The View? They became the punchline. People weren't just upset with Biden's performance, they were furious that The View acted like it didn't happen. Viewers were tired of the spin, tired of the cover-ups, and tired of being treated like they couldn't see what was going on. It wasn't long before Gutfeld's one-liners and Kelly's piercing analysis became the most shared.
There have been a number of books that have come out, deeply sourced from Democratic sources, that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities. In the final year of your presidency, what is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that. We found ourselves unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in interest of time. And so we went to work. The projects, the benefits. How do you lead the world without having the best infrastructure in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best healthcare in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best education system in the world? How do you lead the world when you don't have that done?
Videos of the week. Their takedowns weren't just commentary, they became the voice of a frustrated audience. One commenter put it perfectly. At least they're saying what we're all thinking. And that's the truth. While mainstream media danced around the issue, Gutfeld and Kelly went straight for it. The divide, fans, these. Defenders. Of course, not everyone was clapping. Some people, especially those loyal to Biden or mainstream media, weren't happy. They called Gutfeld and Kelly mean, biased, and disrespectful. But the truth is, what they said hit a nerve. Gutfeld's fans loved his humor, his timing, and the way he called out the nonsense. Kelly's fans respected her for not sugarcoating the situation. Together, they brought something that many viewers feel is missing in today's news.
Asked him about that. They asked him about that moment. Watch this, SOT 36.
When the vice president was here, I asked her if she would have done something differently than your administration over the past 4 years. And because of all the successes that your administration had, I think her response was, there is not a thing that comes to mind.
Honesty. Their voices added to a growing sense that the media can't keep pretending everything's fine when it clearly isn't. And the more they speak out, the harder it becomes for anyone else to ignore the truth. Changing the conversation. Here's what's interesting. Gutfeld and Kelly didn't just roast Biden, they changed the conversation. They forced the rest of the media to pay attention. Before this, many news outlets would have just shrugged off the interview. But after the roasting went viral, everyone had to say something. Suddenly, Biden's performance was front-page news. The excuse train had slowed down, and more people were starting to admit that things didn't look so good. Some networks tried to defend Biden, calling the criticism unfair. Others, though, began taking a harder look at his public appearances. For the first time in a while, people were asking serious questions. Is Biden really up for the job? And why are so many in the media afraid to ask that question? Gutfeld and Kelly, a new kind of influence.
Something like this happens to you, like this assassination attempt, and you say something like God was watching me. That is a very unchristian thing to say because it's very narcissistic. What? Well, God was watching me and not watching them. There's something very disturbing.
That's not what he said.
I should have pulled the plug on that mic yesterday.
That's obnoxious. I don't know what church she goes to. That is how people of faith talk, and the intimation is never he was looking out for me, but not those monsters. Right. It's no, he was looking out for me. It was divine providence. We don't know why he showed his grace on me, and in another instance, this tragic death. But it's clear he did, and I want to make something of it. I want to do something good with it. That is a completely normal, insane thing for someone to say. It's totally consistent with what I hear Christians in my life say all the time.
This moment proved something big. Gutfeld and Kelly aren't just commentators. They're shaping public opinion. Their voices carry weight, not because they follow the crowd, but because they speak up when others stay silent. People are tired of being talked down to. They're tired of spin and tired of excuses. What they want are real conversations about real issues. And when Biden's interview turned into a national joke, Gutfeld and Kelly gave them just that. Their commentary wasn't just popular, it was powerful. It broke through the noise and forced people to listen. It set a new tone for how we talk about leadership, media bias, and accountability. The bigger picture. So what does this all mean? For Biden, it means more pressure. Every future interview will be watched more closely. Every stumble will be replayed 100 times, and every excuse will be met with more skepticism. For The View, it means a damaged reputation. Their handling of the situation made them look more like cheerleaders than journalists. And now, every time they try to defend someone, people will remember this moment and wonder, are they telling the truth or just covering up another mess? For the media as a whole, it's a wake-up call.
As you know, in a 22-minute interview with George Stephanopoulos. But sadly, when Joe heard it was Stephanopoulos, he assumed it was this fella. Snuffleupagus. In a recent interview, Dr. Anthony Fauci said he has, quote, no doubt that Joe Biden is capable of serving as president. He says if Biden was really old and weak, he would have had him killed with COVID. True.
The days of ignoring obvious failures are ending. People want honesty. They want clarity. And they're not afraid to switch channels until they find it. The final word. In the end, what happened after Biden's interview wasn't just a media moment. It was a turning point. Gutfeld and Kelly took what should have been just another bad interview and turned it into a national discussion about truth, media responsibility, and leadership. They called out the spin. They laughed at the excuses. And they reminded everyone that we don't have to accept nonsense just because it comes from the top. So while The View puts on its rose-colored glasses and tries to pretend everything is okay, Gutfeld and Kelly will be there ready to point out the fire, the smoke, and the fact that the train is still off the tracks. And honestly, that's exactly what we need right now.